We're learning the first Sikha on Parshas Chaye Sara and Chelek on page 79. The shir today is being learned to Lenishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Koltman. In heintige Sedre lost wissen die Teire the Sachakel von the Jahren von Sara, Avram and Yishmael. In this week's Parsha, the title tells us the number of years that Sara lived, Avram and Yishmael lived. In Aschalas HaSedre, in the beginning of the Parsha, it says, Vayiyu Chaye Sara Me'eh Shana V'esrim Shana V'sheva Shanim, that the life of Sara was 127 years. And beim Siyum HaSedre, in the end of the Parsha, it says, Ve'elu Yemei Shnei Chaye Avram Gomer Ma'as Shana V'shivim Shana V'chomish Shanim, 175 years. And then it says in the Parsha as well earlier, Ve'ele Shnei Chaye Yishmael, the years of Yishmael's life, Ma'as Shana U'shloishim Shana V'sheva Shanim, 137 years. Gefindt men in dem Advar Pelle in Pirish Rashi ala Teire. We find something that's unusual here in Rashi, the way he addresses the number of years by Sara, Avram, and Yishmael. Chachas bei alle drei steht der Wort Shana, Shonim, sei bei Schumeya, sei bei the Asarais, and sei bei Yechidos. What's unique here about all three is that the Torah puts the word Shana, years, by each different section of the numbers here. There is the 100, when it says 100 years, the tens, whether it's 20, whether it's 30, whether it's 70, it puts again years, and then by the single digit, whether it's 7 or so on, it puts again years. So this is obviously extra, the fact that the Torah keeps on repeating years, Shana, Shonim. So, when it comes to addressing this, why the Torah does this, is Pirish Rashi anders by jede von sie. The way Rashi addresses this, by Sara, Avram, and Yishmael, is different. By Shnei Sara is Rebbe Farish. When it comes to the years of Sara, Rashi explains, Lekach nichtav Shana b'chol klal klal, therefore it's written, the word Shana, years, or year, for each klal, for each number of years separately, or for each group of years separately, to tell you as follows, that you have to darshan, you have to expound and understand each one separately. Undefar, lernt man up, so therefore we learn out two different things here. Baskov ke baschof lechet, that Sara was the same at the age of 100, like she was at the age of 20, when it comes to chet, that she did not sin at all in both of these ages. And then there's another drasha, ubaschov ke bazayin le'yofi, and at the age of 20, she had the same kind of beauty as she had as a young girl of 7. That's by Sara. So you saw the Torah is repeating Shana, Shanim, to darshan twice to compare to each other Kuf to Chav and Chav to Zayin. By Avram, how does Rashi address this by Avram? So Rashi, there Rashi says, one drasha, Ben Kuf ke ben Ayin, when Avram was 100, he was like when he was 70. And what's the significance about 70? That at the age of 70, he was the same as at the age of 5 without any Aveda. So it's all as one drasha. Was meint bepashtus, as melernt arais, what we learn from here, nit wie by Sara, not like Rashi says by Sara, vu kol echad nidrash la'atzmai. Lernt zwei in yanim. By Sara, we learn out two separate points. We compare to learn out that she was without any Aveda, and also with as far as her beauty is concerned. But over here, we just learn out one thing. We compare the life of Avram from the beginning till the end with one Maila. As Oich, Zayin ben Kof, is Avram gewen ke benayin, und benayin ke ben hey b'loichet. That Avram Avinu at the age of 100 was the same as he was when he was 70, which is the same as he was when he was 5 without any Aveda. So that's a difference that has to be addressed. Why here does Rashi not darshan separately like he does by Sara? By Yishmael, and then when it comes to the years that it says by Yishmael, is Rashi b'chlal nit mefarish favos nichtav shana b'chol klal klal. Here Rashi doesn't at all address why the Torah writes the word shana separately by Meya, by Shloishim, and by Sheva. In Mefarshe Rashi is da an ariches gedela v'shakel v'tarye zu verämpfern die Shinui manal Rashi. And so in the commentaries on Rashi, there's a very big discussion and an explanation for the changes here and how Rashi addresses this by Avram, Sara, and Yishmael. Aber, however, neisuf of die verschiedene Schwierigkeiten wir sind da in jede von die Tirutzim. In additional to certain difficulties that there are in each one of these answers, here's not the place to go through all of them and point out these difficulties. Stellt sich da a shaila klalis wie gerät kam upon. There's a general question that has to be addressed, and this is something that was already explained many times. Wie bald as der inyan is klal nit poshet. Since the way Rashi addresses Avram, Sara first, and then Avram, and then Sara, and then Yishmael, that is not a simple matter, as you see from the fact, bis as jeder mefarish hotev dem and ander as bara, to the point that every one of the commentaries has a different approach to this. Hotoch Rashi was as mefarish psukim oich var ben chomish lemikra. So Rashi himself, which explains the psukim for even just a 5-year-old to understand, gedacht klar machen sein pirish. And an eifenas is only bleiben kein safik bekavanes pirushai. Why didn't he write things clearly that there shouldn't be room for so much discussion and commentaries regarding what he means, why he addresses it here one way and here differently, and by Shmuel doesn't address it at all. So Muslim Zagin, what we must say here is, as Rashi's kavana is klar, verstandig, that Rashi's intention of how he addresses all of this is very simple and clear. Von die Werte, was Rashi sagt bei Pirushai, just looking into the words that Rashi does say, uns ist nicht nötig zu meisef sein als and you don't have to resort to any additional sources or go to other information that Rashi doesn't tell you explicitly to understand what his intention is in explaining the years of the life of Sara, Avram, and Yishmael. So the Rabbi here will give us a new approach in understanding this, different than what all the commentaries say, that is going to be simple and straightforward based on the words of Rashi himself. There be it in them, so the explanation here is as follows. Von dem, was Rashi sagt bei Sara, from the fact that Rashi tells us by Sara, lekach nichtav shana b'chol klal leklal, that the Torah writes the word shana separately each time by the numbers that it says of her life. Lo melacha shekol echad nidrash la'atzmai, that you have to dash in each one separately. Bas kof is kebas chaf. So the fact that Rashi says this by Sara, as von dem, was nichtav shana b'chol klal leklal, is muchach shekol echad nidrash la'atzmai, chulu, lechet chulu, le'yoifi, that you learn out from here 2 points. One for chet, that she had no chet, and the other is for her beauty, is verstandig me'atzmai. If so, it's self-understood. As euch noch dem, by Avram, that later on, when the Torah does the same by Avram, was euch beim is nichtav shana b'chol klal leklal. Here as well, the Torah writes the word shana by each group of the numbers of his year separately. Was jede klal sein nidrash la'atzmai, u'melant ereis tzvein yanim. So definitely here, Rashi's intention is that each klal is darshan separately, and we do learn out 2 separate things even by Avram. Ubemele is move on. If so, it's understood that this is how you have to read Rashi, not like we read it before. As when Rashi sagt by Avram in Ben Kuf, Kebenayin, when Rashi says regarding Avram, that at the age of 100, he was similar to the way he was at the age of 70, the way to read this is, nit nara haschala from dem limud. This is not just the beginning of one limud, of one thing we're going to learn out, and it's connected to the following line of Rashi. Ein limud v'zayin siyam is benayin ki ben hei b'lechet. It's not the beginning of the point that Rashi says afterwards, that what's unique about the age of 70, that he's similar to the age of 5 without any Aveda. Nora hisafe. This is an additional point. Noch abazunder limud. There's 2 separate limudim over here. First Rashi tells us, ben kuf ki benayin. And then Rashi adds a separate limud that banayin is kiben hey b'loichet. Now, but when Rashi says ben kuf kiben ayin, Rashi just leaves it at that and doesn't spell out what's the significance of that. That's why it would seem that you have to read it all together. But the Rebbe explains, und das was Rashi teitscht nicht aus, and was es besteht der limud from ben kuf kiben ayin. Why doesn't Rashi spell out when he says that ben kuf is like ben ayin? What does this mean? In what regard? Is this the far, was the Chiddush ve'inyin, and was bei Avram, and is given ben kuf ben ayin, steht befeirish in Pasuk. It's not necessary for Rashi to spell out regarding what Avram Avinu was at the age of 100, like the age of 70, because it says it openly and clearly in the Pasuk itself. But really, it is a separate drasha, just like by Sara, where you darshan separately over here as well. Ben kuf ben ayin is one drasha, and then ben ayin ben hey is a different drasha. So what is it that it says clearly in the Pasuk regarding ben kuf ki ben ayin that Rashi does not have to spell out? When the Rebbe steht angesagt Avram, so when Hashem tells Avram Avinu as v'tob mazum from Sara, that he's going to have a son with Sara, sagt the pasuk says vayome belibai Avram says to himself, Halabem mei shana yulad. Is it possible that at the age of 100 I'm going to give birth? It says, Bem gevenat mie as azal kenen hab ma kind in dem gil from mei shana. It was unbelievable to him that at the age of 100 he'll have a child. So what does this mean? So Rashi there explains. Und wie Rashi is dort mefarish, so Rashi there explains, as b'mei Avram nismatu hashanim. In the times of Avram Avinu, the years, the age, the lifespan of people was less than it was in the earlier generations. Kvar. Ubat toshus koyach ba'olam. And there was a weakness that descended into the world and in the age of people. Shemiru till deseyen b'nei samach u b'nei ayin. And as a result, people gave birth up to the age of 60 or 70. So here Rashi makes it clear what's unique about the age of 70, and when Avraham Avinu was wondering that at the age of 100 I can't give birth, that's at 70, he's still able to give birth. That's natural. At that time period of history, up until 70, people would still have children. So now with this, it's verstandig bepashtus, and was is given, ben kuf ke benayim by Avraham Avinu. What Rashi means when he says, or when the pasuk here is telling us shana separately to say that at the age of 100, Avram was just as he was at the age of 70. What is this regarding? At that age, because of the kind of weakness that there was in the world, is there guilt of kinder gewen bis bnei ayin. The age to have children was only up to the age of 70. This weakness did not affect Avraham Avinu, and he had children past the age of 70. As we see, he had Yishmael at the age of 86. And therefore, even at the age of 100, he remained with the same ability to have children as it is at the age of 70. That is what Ben Kuf Kibenayim means here regarding having children, and this is something which is understood from the pasuk earlier and what Rashi already explained there, and therefore Rashi doesn't spell it out here again. Now, with this we understand better what Rashi himself says there. The pasuk quoted when Avraham Avinu was wondering, will I have a child at the age of 100? Nit as das is atmiyah. This is not Avraham Avinu wondering that it's impossible. He's saying that this is impossible, that at the age of 100 I'll have a child. Rather, this is expressing the unbelievable nature that he saw, that he had, that even at the age of 100 he's still going to have a child. Oma believer, Rashi there says, he said in his heart, is in fact Hashem going to do this kindness for me after everything he has already done to me? In other words, he's just pointing out the unbelievable nature of what he actually saw, that this is actually true, that at the age of 100, he has the same ability to have a child like at the age of 70. Because as Rashi here says, Ben Kuf Kibenayin, by Avraham Avinu, the weakness that there was, that after the age of 70, you can't have children, did not at all affect Avraham Avinu. This is all regarding Avraham Avinu. Mashenkein Sara, on the other hand, when it comes to Sara, Chaye says, Chad aliyas l'Sara oirech kanashim. The pasuk clearly says that Sara, so her body did change in age, and she did not have the ability to have children. So for her, at that age, it was impossible for her to have any children. And for her, Hashem performed a unique miracle. As by ears, that the Eibishter, nothing is impossible, and therefore she had a child Yitzchak at this age, even though her body already did change. No, however, another thing has to be clarified over here. Sara had getracht as Eich Avram kenet haben kein Kinder. Sara was not aware of the strength of Avraham Avinu, that at the age of 100 he's the same as the age of 70, and she thought that Avraham Avinu cannot have children as well. As the pasuk says, that Sara was in disbelief, and she said about herself, and then she also added, and my master, my husband, is also so old and he can't have children. But this was Sara thinking this way. But the truth about Avraham himself was that the miracle over here was not that even though Avram's body did change, but nevertheless Hashem caused even an aged body of 100 to have a child. By Avram Avinu, the aging never happened. His body at the age of 100 was the same as the age of 70. That is, Akashi Gedoyle. This answers another big question here. Was Rashi stellt sich nicht ab auf dem, was bei Avramen seine geboren geworden Kinder b'nei Ketura mehr wie 40 Jahre nach Leidas Yitzchak. Why doesn't Rashi address a question that other commentaries talk about? The fact that later, much later, after when Avram Avinu was 140 years old, Avram Avinu has additional children with his wife Ketura. Und es wird dabei nicht Mann, dass die Eilad ist gewähnt durch Hanes. And here, it's not mentioned at all about the fact that this is a kind of birth that was a tremendous miracle as well, an even greater miracle at an older age. So other commentaries talk about this, but Rashi doesn't address this at all. So the answer is, this is already clarified right here when we say, when Avram Avinu passes away, that at the age of 100, his body did not age, it was the same as the age of 70. As by Avram is nicht gewähnt, kein Tosches Koyach, was hat Magbel gewähnt, haben Kinder beseien. By Avram Avinu, the weakness and the change in the nature of the body that changes after the age of 70 did not take effect at all. Which then means, this human nature of weakness in the body did not at all have any effect on Avram Avinu at any point of time. It just, this concept of Toshas Koyach did not relate to him. Und b'meile hat gehad Kinder zu Kuf, und euch viel später. So therefore, as far as Avram Avinu is concerned, he had a child, Yitzchak, at the age of 100, and also children much later on. Al derech v'de meile from Beloi Chet. This point is the same as when we say, regarding the fact that Avram Avinu is Beloi Chet, that at the age of 5 he's without Chet, and at the age of 70 he's without Chet. So what does that mean over there? Over there it means, was Hagam, as a Lashon is, ben ayin ki ben hey Beloi Chet, that at the age of 70 he's at the age of 5, but it doesn't mean that only at the age of 70 he was without Averis, and then later on that changed. It's not indicating that past the age of 70 something changed about this. Rather, it's saying that Avram Avinu his entire lifetime was without any Avera. So it's the same also with Ben Kuf ke Ben Ayin regarding this weakness, Toshus Koyach, that there was no Toshus Koyach by Avram Avinu at all in any point of his lifetime. So therefore, the fact that he had children later when he was 140 is not a unique miracle. This is something that was already true by Avram Avinu from before, that Toshus Koyach did not affect his body at all. But that's only Avram Avinu. Sara, however, her body did get affected by this. But the Eibishter made a unique miracle that even her aged body, she was able to give birth to children. So in Siv Gimel, the Rabbi continues and explains how we could see this distinction between Avram and Sara in the story that it says later in the Parsha. This is in Parshas Vayera here, and later on in Parshas Teildes. With them chilek zwischen Avram and Sara, with this understanding, the difference between Avram and Sara, wird euch recht werden, die Shine b'Pirushe Rashi. We can see a difference of what Rashi says regarding Avram and Sara as far as them having children. Like from Pasuk Nika Bonim Sara, so in the Pasuk later here, or it's actually earlier on in Parshas Vayera. So there it says that Sara, she nursed other babies. Is Rashi Mifarish? Rashi explains, what is this all about? That B'yayma Mishteh was in a day of a celebration, of a festive party that they made. Heviu Asara says B'neim Imaen ve'nika Isam. So Sara, these noble women, brought their children, their babies along with them to the Mishteh, and Sara nursed them. Why? What was the point of this? Shahayu Aimrais, because these noble women were saying, Lo Yolda Sara. Sara did not give birth. She's so old, it's impossible. Ela Sufi Hevia Min Ashuk. There was an abandoned child that she took and brought home from the street. That's what Rashi says regarding Sara. Now, in Pasuk and None Parshas Teildes, in the beginning of Parshas Teildes, where it says Avram Hoyled es Yitzchak, that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak, so Rashi explains what are these extra words coming to teach. Zokt Rashi, Lefi Shahayu Leitzane Adar Imrim, because the ones that the scoffers of the generation would say, they would make a mockery out of this, and they would say Avimelech Nesabra Sara, that Sara became pregnant from Avimelech. Avram at such an age can't give birth. So Ma'as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what did the Eibishter do? Tzar Chulu, the Eibishter made the image of Yitzchak to be the exact same as Avram Avinu, ve'idu HaKoil Avram Hoil des Yitzchak. And everybody saw clearly and everyone testified that Avram is the one that gave birth to Yitzchak. So here Rashi says Leitzane Hadar. So the Rebbe points out this difference here. Davon verstehen, the question here is, was by Sara and Zogt Rashi, as the Sarais, which are nashim chashuvay. Saretz means the noble women. They are the ones that were saying that Sara could not give birth. Haben gesagt layolde Sara. Und when it gets Avram and is a mefarish, as who was saying this? Chaye litzane hadayraim dim me'avi melech nesabra Sara. It was the litzanim, the ones that are looking just to poke fun and make a mockery, were the ones that were saying that Avram cannot give birth. Why over here is it only the litzanim, which seems to indicate that everyone else believed the fact that Avram gave birth? Euch is nicht verstandig. Another question here is, das was henike bonim Sara. The fact that Sara was able to nurse the babies and prove that she gave birth is not a bitter as yalda Sara. This only proves that she gave birth. Und the kind is nicht kein Asufi. The child is not an abandoned child taken from the street. Das ist aber nicht kein Beweis, as das ist Avram's Kind. It doesn't prove that this is Avram's child. Haben doch die Saras gekannt sagen, wie die Litzane Yadair, so these noble women could still say and argue the same as the Litzanim said, as Mavimelech, the Sabra Sara, that she became pregnant from Mavimelech. Wissentlich as Avram is a Zaken B'meim Shana, they knew that Avram was at the age of 100. So how did this help the fact that she was nursing the babies if they would still say that it's not Avram's child? To me, in them is noch starker. The question that we see here, this distinction between Avram and Sara, is even stronger, because in Gemara wird gebracht die zwei Inyanim in ein Hemshech. In the Gemara, both of these points, proving that this is Sara's child and proving that it's Avram's child, is brought in the Gemara together as one point. Heinika banim Sara, Sara nursed the babies. There was this rumor that people were saying in the world, Shevia Asufi min hashuk, that Avram and Sara brought an abandoned child from the street. Avram Avinu halach v'zimen kol gedele yader v'Sara imenu zimna is nishisayim. So what did they do? Avram went and invited all the great people in that time, and Sara went and invited all the noble women to come. And v'hinika es kulan, and Sara then went and nursed the babies of all of them. And so to make it clear that she's able to nurse, it's her baby. But Vadayin Hayumeran Nevayim, the Gemara continues, all in the same story, that still there was a rumor of people saying, Va'imrim im Sara bas Tishim Teiled, Tishim Shana Teiled, even if Sara at the age of 90 could give birth, Avram b'meya Shana Yoiled, could Avram Avinu at the age of 100 give birth? So there was still the question and the rumor as before regarding Avram. So then the Eibishter made another miracle. The Yitzchak's image became the same as Avram, and everyone saw that it's Avram's child. So here the Gemara brings that as one point, that the same source of the rumor of people that was saying that it's not Sarah's child is the same source that was saying this regarding Avram. But Rashi addresses this differently. Regarding Sara, Rashi says that it was the Sarais, the noble woman, that was saying this. Regarding Avram, Rashi says it was just the Litzani Yadar, people that were looking to poke fun. According to what was explained before, how Rashi learns Pshutei Shel Mikra, this is answered. The Chiddush Utmiyah by the Sarais is Milchatchila Geven Nar B'Negei Sarin. The wonder and the idea that all the noblemen were so amazed that Sarah gave birth and they were in disbelief, that's only regarding Sarah. Because she did age, and therefore is nit meglach zu haben Kinder. So therefore for her, naturally, it was impossible to have any children. Ashenkin Avram, but by Avram, everyone saw that he didn't age at all. Zen the Gazarat Gebeiden, Yishmael into Pevav Shana, and everyone saw that he gave birth to Yishmael at the age of 86. Past the age that people gave birth naturally in that time, only up to the age of 70. Is by Zeshen Kepelen it given was I can haben a kind euch zu ben mea. So it wasn't at all a wonder and a question by them that he can give birth at the age of 100. Und der Fall ist euch bei Anoshim Chashuvim Bechlal kein Pelenet given was Avram held this Yitzchak. So by all people, by people that were thinking normally and seeing what's going on, they didn't have any question regarding the fact that Avram Avinu gave birth to Yitzchak. Nor the Litzane Adar, those people that are looking to make a mockery. Wenn es ist nicht negeya, wie die Sache ist bei Emes, und sie suchen nur am Mocken zu praven Litzanes Cholo. People that don't care about the facts and the truth, they're just looking to poke fun. Nor they haben gesagt, mit Alitzanes, Mavimelech Nesabra Sara. They were the ones that were saying this, and they were just saying this as a mockery. They knew that no one will believe what they're saying, that she became pregnant from Avimelech. The Eibishter wants to make this clear that even Litzanim, even those people looking to make a mockery, should not be able to say this. And the fact so Avram's image and Yitzchak's image were now the same. So here Rashi says, everybody saw clearly, that even these Litzanim saw that Avram held this Yitzchak, that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. So we see here clearly the way Rashi addresses this, that this is the difference between Avram and Sara. Avram's body didn't age at all, and therefore at the age of Ben Kuf, he is the same as Keben Ayin, and that's what Rashi means. Rashi doesn't have to spell this out, because it's clear from the Psukim before. And regarding Sara, though, over there was a unique miracle, even though her body did age. Now, Sif Dalet, the Rabbi continues to explain how Rashi addresses Yishmael, or rather, why regarding the years by Yishmael, Rashi doesn't say anything at all. Why doesn't Rashi spell out there similar that it says Shana separately? And there we also have to darshan and say that at the age of 100, Yishmael was like he was the same as he was at 30. And at the age of 30, he's the same as he was at 7. It says here Shana separately, so it has to be darshan the same as it is by Sara and Avram. It's because after what Rashi said before by Sara and Avram, it's self-understood here as well. Light and Pirish Rashi in demselben Hemshech by Avram. According to what Rashi says, not long after this, right over here, regarding Avram. And what do we understand if we compare to what Rashi says by Avram? Ben Kov is Keben Lamed, that by Yishmael, yes, it says Shana separately, and you do have to dash, and Rashi doesn't even have to tell this to you. And what's the drasha? That at the age of 100, Yishmael was the same as he was at the age of 30, regarding what? On Toshus Kayach, meaning that he did not have any weakness in his body. Lamed is that age when a person is at his peak of his strength, as the Rabbi brings here in the order from Pekayav, it's been Shleishim L'Kayach, and at the age of 100, he's the same strong as the age of 30. Uben Lamed Keben Zayin is Lechet, and at the age of 30, he is the same at the age of 7 regarding Averis. Zayin Tshuvaton, even though Avram Yishmael, that is, did sin in his life, but Yishmael did Shuvah even before Avram passed away, and soon the Rebbe is going to get into the details about this, that he did Shuvah. Zokte mit der Pasik is schon gewend von Lamed Shana on. When is the time period that Yishmael did Shuvah? It's after the age of 30, before he comes to the age of 100, Yishmael had already done Shuvah. And therefore, Ben Lamed Keben Zayin, it doesn't mean that at the age of 30 he did Shuvah, but it means Ben Lamed, before you come to the next number of his years, which is 100, so somewhere between Lamed and 100, Yishmael did Shuvah, and therefore, through his Shuvah, he was in the same condition that he was at the age of 7. That's what the drasha over here is. This is something that's self-understood, and Rashi does not have to explain this. However, there's a deeper point over here, and the Rabbi here introduces this by first explaining why Bechlal is the Torah talking about the life of Yishmael and how long the years of his life was. But what we have to understand over here is what Rashi himself says over here regarding the life of Yishmael. What does Rashi here say regarding this, that the Torah tells us how long the life of Yishmael was? Why Bechlal is the Torah telling us how long Yishmael lived? We don't find that the Torah tells us the life of everyone in the Torah, only regarding tzaddikim. The answer is this is all being written only that we could understand from the life of Yishmael regarding things that happened in the life of Yaakov, how long he lived and where he was. Rashi then goes on to explain as Mishnaisav Shal Yishmael from the years that the Torah tells us regarding the life of Yishmael. This brings us to a conclusion that there's 14 years missing in the life of Yaakov that are not accounted for, and those 14 years Yaakov was in the house of Shem ve'Aver learning Torah, or by Aver learning Torah. Das heißt, so what do we understand from this Rashi? As mit Mediyah sein dem Nispesh Neisav Shal Yishmael, by the Torah telling us the life of Yishmael, the years that he lived, is der Pasuk nicht leisen zu sagen, oder merame sein, epis b'shachas Yishmael allein. The point there is not to let us know regarding the life of Yishmael himself, anything to clearly or hinting us anything about the life of Yishmael. Yishmael, to himself, of who he is and his lifespan, that's not relevant to us. What's written about Yishmael is only to give us a certain point about the life of Yaakov. Okay, so what do we understand from this? That the whole point of here writing the life of Yishmael is not to tell us anything about Yishmael himself. So then when the Torah tells us about the life of Yishmael, we see that the Torah writes Shana separately, Shana, Shanim. So doesn't that mean that the Torah is coming to tell us these details that the Rebbe just pointed out, that Yishmael himself didn't get weak, and Yishmael himself did Shuvah? So by adding those details of Shana, we see that the Torah is telling us details about Yishmael himself. Euch is leitem Pirish Rashi nit verstandig klal klal, lama nichtav Shana b'chol klal klal. So if so, now the question comes up, besides the fact that we can't say that the word Shana is being written over to tell us details about the life of Yishmael himself. So now the question is, so why does the Torah tell us the word Shana separately, if it only tells us the total sum of the years of Yishmael, just so that we should understand regarding 14 years of Yaakov that were not accounted for? But there's no point in saying Shana separately regarding Yishmael himself. Das ist machriach zu sagen über Pirish Rashi. What this forces us to say here regarding Rashi's understanding of the pasuk that it says by Yishmael, Lama nichtav Shana cholo, why it says Shana by Yishmael, is melchatchile ken kashinit. So this is not a question that Rashi has to address at all, as pointed out before. Nachem Pirish Rashi by Avram in Kana, after what Rashi already says by Avram. The kasha is aber, the only question that there is over here, not the details of Shana is not a question. The kasha is aber lama nimnu shneisav shel Yishmael b'chlal. Why does the Torah at all mention the years, the lifespan of Yishmael? Wie der ben chamish shel mikra zet, as Torah that zelt nar in yonim belachazena negeya. As we see, the Bechamish Mikra sees this, the Torah only tells us details about things that are relevant for us. Even about the life of Chanoich and Mesushelach, the Torah tells us almost nothing about their life. So why over here does the Torah tell us the chalal about the lifespan of Yishmael? So that Rashi has to explain that it's all for Yaakov. That's the point that Rashi has to clarify. But now, let them move on. From this, we could understand as well, as even when the Torah, once it says the lifespan of Yishmael, for the purpose of understanding something regarding Yaakov, that's the real focus. So the same could be applied also now to this detail that the Torah adds Shana by a Yishmael, by each klal, by each group of years. Is the pasuk nit eisen nar zu vergleichen zeh the Yonah von Yishmael, and the main point here is not just this alone, to compare these years to each other. Ben Kov, ke ben Lamed v'chulu, was das is nar achidush umayla nesefes in Yishmael. So then that would just be adding another piece of information regarding a mila that Yishmael himself has. And that's something that the Torah does not focus on. The Torah wouldn't speak about that. Vivalt, as the pasuk b'chlal is nit oisen Yishmael and Kufa, because the whole reason b'chlal why the Torah tells us the lifespan of Yishmael is not because it wants to tell us this detail about Yishmael himself. No, but Yaakov. It's only because it helps us understand about the life of Yaakov. So the same has to be true regarding the details of Shana that we compare Ben Kuv to Ben Lamed. That's also something that's relevant to compare to Yaakov. And das was the pasuk sagt fort. Euch by Yishmael and Shana b'chol klal uklal. So therefore, this that the pasuk goes ahead and does write Shana by each group of the years by Yishmael was that uptelling yet the klal from Shana latzmai by separating the group of years, each one separately. Is kanal meramez of amayla on oivtu was given by Yishmael in yedef and these manim. So this is pointing out a certain level of a certain advantage that each one of these time periods has, Kuf and Lamed and Zayin. Is das nicht kedai man soll vergleichen die Jahren von Yishmael and Zelazah. The point here is not to give us additional information about the life of Yishmael himself, to compare these years to one another, to know about the milas that he had. As by him, seine gewen oti milas chol, that he possessed these different milas throughout his life. No, rather kediliachis behem Yaakov, in order to contrast this regarding Yaakov. So laws and wissen. Yichus Milas Yaakov, in order to let us know the greatness of the level of Yaakov. Das was Torah is meramis b'da b'negei Yishmael and Zayna Milas. The fact that the Torah hints here by writing Shana Shanim separately by the years of Yishmael, that gives us information regarding his lifespan, is liyachas ben Yaakov. Is just to contrast this and to understand from this how great Yaakov was. Mizal wissen as by Yaakovin. So that we should know that by Yaakov he had very special years of his life. That when you look at Yishmael, and you see what the Torah hints to here, the unique character or the unique abilities or milas that Yishmael had in his years, in his life, Yaakov had the same, but even to a much greater degree. It's only being written by Yishmael to then understand that by Yaakov, it's much more. That's why it's being said over here. So we're sticking to the original drasha, as the Rabbi said in the beginning of this ois, ben kuf ke ben lamed, as far as Tosh's Koyach, that there was no weakness that affected him, and Ben Lamed ke Ben Zayin, regarding Chet, that he did Shuvah. But these details here are being said by Yishmael, not just to give us information for Yishmael himself, but then to compare and see how by Yaakov this itself was much greater. Where do we see this? The beard in them, so the explanation here is, the Shini was given in Yishmael, and the change that there was by Yishmael to Ben Kuf when he was 100, is was schon given about Shuvah, that at the age of 100 he was already about Shuvah from before. Wie Rashi sagt, bepirushay, as Rashi already tells us before, as Yishmael lot Shuvah getan noch b'chai Avram. The Yishmael did Shuvah still in the lifetime of Avram, and Yishmael is given 89 Jahr b'shas Mises Avram. He was 89 years old when Avram passed away, so somewhere before this age of 89, Yishmael did Shuvah. So between 30 and 100, sometime he did Shuvah then. Und das bewarnt Rashi, so this is what Rashi is telling us here. As nit gucken dik of them was is given about Shuvah. So not looking at the fact that he had this tremendous mile that he became about Shuvah. Biz to the point as beim steht vayigva. When it talks about him passing away, it doesn't use the usual term of misa. It says vayigva. Aloshin v'steht no by tzadikim. This is an expression that it says only by tzadikim, and Rashi points that out. Hat es aber kein betrefft nit, legabe die tzidkas von Yaakov. Nevertheless, Yishmael's level of righteousness does not reach at all, is not similar at all to the level of tzidkas of Yaakov. So the Torah here is writing the tzidkas of Yishmael, and then when we learn further on in the Psukim about the tzidkas of Yaakov, we come to appreciate and realize how much greater the tzidkas of Yaakov is comparing to Yishmael. The Ma'ila from Ben Shloishim is similar when it comes to the advantage of what Yishmael had in this mile of being 30 is Kaidim, Zman HaTosh's Koyach from Ben Samach Ben Ayin. That's the age of 30 before weakness of 60 or 70. Ben Shloishim L'Koyach B'Lashon HaMishnah, as the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, this is the time when a person is at his peak of his strength. Uvimezet B'Muchish, this is something you see clearly, Echa Ben Chamish, and therefore even a child sees this. As in Gil from Shloishim is the Gvura by mentioned by Itzim Toikfa. At the age of 30, that's when the person is at the peak of his strength. On Yishmael, Zayin dig zu Azavas Yodeh Bakoil, and Yishmael, and also we know that Yishmael was an individual that Yodeh Bakoil, that he was everywhere with his hands, so he was a very strong might. Is move on as an Eltuf and Shloishim is a Given Agibah. At the age of 30, he was very, very strong. So therefore, that's what we're learning out of here, that at the age of 30, he was without any weakness comparing to the age of, and the same that is, was at the age of 100. That's Ben Kuf, ke Ben Lamed. And from deswegen, so over here as well, why is the Torah telling us about the strength of Yishmael? It's coming to contrast now to Yaakov. Hat euch Yishmael's Gevurah kein betreffnit gegen Gvurah shel Yaakov. Yishmael's might can't be compared at all to the great might of Yaakov. Wie Rashi is mefarish, as Rashi later explains this, from Pasuk vayogal asavim al pia be'er, when Yaakov comes to Charan and he sees the well has a very large rock that's covering it, and all the shepherds wait until many of them come together, and together they can push this rock off the well. So what did Yaakov do? The Yaakov removed this rock, like a person that removes a cover from a barrel or a cover from a bottle. What we learn from here is that Yaakov was extremely mighty. Even though at that point Yaakov was 77 years old, past the age of 70 when the body already becomes weaker. So therefore we see that Yaakov Avinu, in his Gvura, he was much stronger than Yishmael. Now another point here is regarding Ben Sheva. Der Inyan Miyuchad von Ben Sheva is verstandig von Pirush Rashi Anal by Avram. What's unique about the age of 7? So this is understood from what Rashi says regarding Avram, Ben Ayin ke Ben Hey Belechet. That Avram was at 70, the same as the age of 5, without any Aveda. Zayin de Gakotten is a Belechet. At the age of 5 or at 7, there's no Avedas at all. So over here, Ben Zayin or Ben Hey does not express the union of Tshuva, but that's actually a time period where the child is still so young and there's no Avedas yet. So Yishmael was Belechet, at the age of 7. And this as well is by Yishmael, but by Yaakov, below Chet at that age is also on a completely different level. So one would think, as in Demprat, when it comes to this detail, isn't it Shaykh to Mechalek zwischen Yishmael and Yaakov? Here we're talking about such a young age, a child, before he's developed, before there's maturity. So at this young age, the fact that Yishmael didn't sin yet, and the fact that Yaakov at such a young age has no chet, here there's no distinction. And then, in from Ketanim, below chet, then al-chayre beide gleich. Because of this young age and maturity, here the fact that they both didn't sin, they're both equal in this. Zok Chaye, so therefore the Chaye over here mentions this age of Yishmael as well, to contrast it to Yaakov, to say that no, it's different. As Eichen dem hat Yishmael came betreffend legabe Yaakov. That even regarding this, Yishmael, without an Aveda at this age, can't compare himself at all to Yaakov. Why not? Even though this is seemingly just a result of immaturity of that age, it leads to not doing an Aveda, so it's the same by Yishmael and Yaakov. The reason is, while the etzem mitzias from Yaakov is anders for Yishmael. The very existence of who Yaakov is different than who Yishmael is, which is a ben ha'ama. He's a son from a maidservant, and therefore his very identity is on a lower level. Obemele is wegen was for a Sache es redt sich. In jede Prate. It doesn't matter, whatever detail about his life you speak about, even regarding this, that at this immature age there's no Averis, is Yaakov in ganzen anders. The very existence of who Yaakov and Yishmael are, as little children, they're in completely different. Hechaf in Yishmael. Yaakov is a completely different level of an existence of an individual than who Yishmael is, being a ben ha'ama. On the far, so therefore, Yishmael, as Rashi says, the years of Yishmael, his lifespan, are not mentioned here. Kailul, the milas was in the Gimel Pamim Shana, and that includes also the details, the fact that the Torah writes Shana and to know about his years of 7 and of 30 and of 100. All these milas that the Torah says about Yishmael, why is it being written? That from this, we could understand that Yaakov has these same milas on a completely different level. That it can't be compared to Yishmael in anything. All the way down to, as little children, that the Metzias of Yaakov, the very existence of who he is completely different than Yishmael.